It is an amazing day to just show up. Hi, everyone. Yvonne Heath here, nurse turned author, speaker, change maker, and your host. Welcome to Navigating Grief with Heart and Humor, where we talk about, plan, and prepare for grief, transitions, end of life, and the messiness in between, long before it arrives, so we can diffuse the fear and live fully now. That is what we aspire to do. Most of the time, we've been in the deep trenches of grief. We've faced crisis, trauma, transitions, and realized how ill prepared we were. So we want to do it differently from here on in. We want to be proactive. We want to have conversations, normalize the talk, those challenging conversations before we need to. I've heard people say over and over, well, I don't want to talk about this. I say, yes, I understand. It's a yes, and when you are in crisis, I promise you, you will not feel like talking about it. You will have to, and you will have all of these other emotions swirling around. And it is then difficult to make decisions that are based on logic and reality rather than emotion. So we are part of creating a culture of change where we are proactive, where we create a solid foundation of coping skills, strategies, what we believe about life and death, and normalizing the right stuff. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me today, or if you are watching the show as it is recorded, which I love so much, I hope that you have still set that intention and you are very present. And so before I just become very mindful and land here, I will share a fun fact with you, because for me, navigating this journey we call life with heart and humor is the only way. And so I'm just laughing because whenever I think of, okay, so what is a fun fact I can share? I mean, in all these decades of life, funny things have happened. And one of my superpowers is laughing at myself, because if you can't laugh at yourself, you're taking life too seriously. So as I was preparing and I realized, ooh, I had a little bit of mascara where it didn't belong, and there was a bit of a black glob there. And as I was making sure, hopefully it isn't there anymore, I remembered back when I was being, a supervisor was showing me around the hospital, and I was going to become a supervisor. And so she was, teaching me the ropes, and I was so nervous, and I was all dressed really, I had my uniform as de-wrinkled as possible. I don't iron, but I was just, wanting to make a good impression, and feeling nervous and anxious and excited. And it was a night shift, and I went into the washroom at 4 a.m, and I realized I had a great big black mark across my cheek. I wondered, wow, well, that's embarrassing. I wonder how long that has been there. And so I was mortified, washed it off, came back to the supervisor who was giving me this orientation. I said, oh my gosh, can you believe it? I had this black mark. I hope it just happened. She said, oh yeah, I noticed that a while ago. Really? Did you notice that a while ago? So yeah, I said, oh, well, why didn't you tell me? She goes, oh yeah, I guess that would have been a good idea. Okay, so here's a little tip for all you humans. If you see someone with a big glob of mascara or a big mark or whatever, toilet paper hanging from their heel or anything else, please be brave and share that with them so they don't have to walk around with a big mark on their face, which probably made everybody laugh. Oh, well, if it made them laugh, then it's worth it. Oh my goodness. Well, it's just so silly, right? Nobody told me. Anyway, that's my fun fact for today, because even when we have serious conversations, it's already serious enough. And I just need a little grief break every now and again in these very emotional, sometimes challenging conversations. So before we begin, I'm just going to take my moment, my ritual of landing here so I can be fully present. I can share the message that your heart your soul needs to hear. And I know that we are all teachers and we are all students. And I'm also here to learn, because with every single day that is a privilege to be here on this earth, I learn something, and I always am open to learning. It may be from a dog, a child, a situation, an adult, a dying person. We are always learning. And so if we can be open to that, then we will be able to navigate this journey with even more wisdom, right? And so I want to just take a moment to forget about all the noise out there, all the other things going on, the things I'm going to do for the rest of my day. I want to just set an intention of sharing what you need to hear, and being fully present. So I invite you to create your own ritual when you need to be fully present somewhere. For me, it's closing my eyes and taking 2 slow, deep breaths, inhaling and exhaling. And then it kind of quiets the noise for me. So I invite you to join me, or whatever ritual helps you to be fully present for our time together. Just going to close my eyes and inhale through my nose, exhaling through my mouth. And one more time. Exhaling slowly. Okay. I love my little ritual. So let's get started. We began a conversation last episode about compassion fatigue, burnout, and boundaries. And, it's so interesting to have these conversations, even when I'm just speaking, because it's like insights and things come to me from wonderful people who have shared their stories or things I have observed. And we talk about compassion fatigue and burnout a lot. And it's kind of like mental health. We are, talking about it and removing the stigma, et cetera. And that's all wonderful. And we need to continue to have these conversations and be proactive and dig in deep and say, okay, well, how am I setting myself up for compassion fatigue or burnout? Because we are our own gauge, right? We are the only ones who know how much we can handle, how honest and authentic we are being, how truthful about how we are handling things. That is up to us. And when we are not starting with those conversations with ourselves, we will burn out. I promise you. The whole let's pretend we're fine when we're not. I shared that in my TED Talk. Like we just need to eliminate that pretending we're fine when we're not. And we need to get good at checking in. It's like, oh, if you're not used to checking in with yourself, practice. How am I doing mentally, physically, emotionally? It doesn't have to take all day. Just do like a little scan. Okay, a little ache there. That's okay. And emotionally, yes, I'm feeling pretty good. What do I have coming up today? Are there things that are challenging? How do I feel right now about moving forward with this? And that may change throughout the day. See, there's just so many things to consider in this. We can promise. How do we promise? As if we know. I promise I will take care of this person 24 hours a day for the next 3 weeks if I can just have this vacation. Well, elephant in the room. How do you know that you are going to, in that time, in the future, be able to do that? What if you break your leg? I'm sorry, let's just talk about that. What if something happens and you're not able to fulfill that promise, and then there's nobody else? Hello, compassion fatigue, burnout, crisis. One of the things that many people do is they become everything to everybody or everything to one person. And if that is the case, we must ask ourselves what we can do to change that, because that is not sustainable. And you're not doing anyone any favors, because if you're a caregiver and you're the only person that person sees 24/7, I just think that's going to get a little boring. Stimulation down. Let's just talk about that. And yet I see that we set unrealistic expectations for ourselves, right? Like we think that we should be able to do all of the carpooling in the house and have a part-time job and then caregiving and walking the dog. And how are we doing with that? Well, not very well. We have so many mental, physical, emotional issues. We have a society of unhappy people, and I'm talking about the hard stuff. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful stuff. There's always a lot of wonderful stuff as well along the way. And yet when we truly step back and say, okay, so these are the things I am expecting of myself now and in the future. And is there any wiggle room for a mishap, a day you don't feel well? Do you have a backup plan? I will tell you, last week, and I've been fit and healthy and feeling really good, and I blamed Jordy because he's a paramedic, there's a lot of sick people, obviously, that he takes care of, and he brought a beautiful little virus home, and I was so ill. I felt so awful. I didn't anticipate that. That wasn't in my plan. And so if we can revisit the unrealistic expectations we have of ourselves and others, if we can have backup and create a little wiggle room somewhere, somehow, that prevention piece, right? That being proactive. And I really believe with all my heart and soul that the more maintenance, right? Maintenance and being proactive and anticipating what is coming and what demands may be coming, and knowing that everything may change, at least having that in our minds. I know right now we have, my husband and I and our family, we have many aging parents and relatives, and they may require extra help along the way. And so I don't want to be, oh my gosh, they need all of this help and I didn't see that coming. Before we get to that, if we get to that, and chances are most of us do have an illness or a decline in our health that is progressive rather than dying suddenly. Those are just the facts. So we already know that this is coming and everybody is doing well at this point. Knock on wood. I know that anything can change at any time, so I'm checking my resources, professional resources. I am creating home environments that are easier to clean, easier to navigate. One floor, so that should someone come and stay with us, we're able to accommodate that. We, of course, have done advanced care planning and wills and had conversations with everyone. I don't want to have those conversations with a dying loved one or someone who is ill. And speaking of burnout or fatigue, that is so emotionally taxing when somebody is ill and you are grieving and they're frustrated, you're frustrated, and then you want to have the talk about advanced care planning or end of life. So once again, these are the things that we can do proactively. Let's get those things out of the way. And once again, every year at tax time, revisit. Let's just make that a habit and normalize. Have conversations with siblings and family that's around. Say, okay, so if mom is going to need extra care, I'm wondering what we can all do to contribute. and creating that compassionate community, family, friends, neighbors, coworkers, asking. We simply must get better at asking and receiving and offering on the other side of that offering. Because the other piece that I've realized people get stuck in is we don't feel qualified, so we don't want to answer. Well, every single one of us can be a part of palliative care, which is just taking care of those with a life-limiting or life-altering illness. It isn't just up to the professionals, it's for everyone. And knowing that we can all make a difference. And what I've seen, and I've done it, we're all guilty. It's like, if I can't do everything, I do nothing, right? Like if I can't go over for 2 hours, I'm not going to do anything at all. If I can't give $100, I'm not going to give anything at all. Well, here's two very beautiful examples of being the change and helping to create a positive impact. That doesn't take a lot of time or money. There was a project in our town for Habitat for Humanity. A home was being built for someone whose home was destroyed by mold, and so they were having a home built for them, and it was so extraordinary, a very beautiful community project. And it was just happened to be, I was just very overwhelmed with a lot of things moving at that time, and I just thought, I can't go over for a couple of hours. And then I stopped and I thought, maybe I can go for 25 minutes or 30 minutes. So, and without worrying about being judged, like, oh, you're only going to stay for this long, I gave what I could. And so I went over and I said, okay, here's the thing. I only have 30 minutes and I need to be somewhere else. What can I do in 30 minutes to be the most helpful? And they said, well, that's great. There's all this garbage everywhere that needs to go outside in the bin. I said, say no more. And I just worked like Tasmanian devil for 30 minutes. And I removed all of the garbage. And they were so grateful. They said, oh my gosh, thank you so much. That was so helpful. That was just a really great moment for me, realization, right? Because again, in that fatigue and burnout, and wouldn't it be wonderful? Imagine if your family, friends, neighbors all said, I only have half an hour. What could I do to be helpful? It's like, oh, can you cut the grass? Would you mind walking the dog, bringing the garbage out? Can you sit with my mom and have some tea? I'm going to go for a half-hour walk, or I'm going to go grab some groceries in town. That would be helpful. Or if you could get groceries, or someone who goes to the grocery store regularly, if you could pick me up a couple things every time you go, it wouldn't even be an extra trip for you. There is something we can all do, including children. Asking children, hey, it'd be great if you came over and sang a little song for my mom. She loves kids. And you play the guitar? Not very well. Yeah, play your guitar and let's have a little party. There's so many things we can do as community, as compassionate community members, to alleviate that the burden. Sometimes it feels like a burden. And yet again, with that, if we can reframe it from, I have to do this, to I get to do this, I get to support this person in this time in their illness. And PS, easier said than done, obviously. But if we can do these things and reframe and say, I get to do this, and I'm going to need help. I cannot do this alone. Let's be as proactive as possible. Let's get paperwork out of the way. Let's talk about family, or talk with family and say, okay, I am not able or willing to do all. I'm going to do what I can. I will need help along the way, and I'm going to need lots of breaks. I'm going to need to go and do meditation, yoga, walk in nature, whatever fills my heart and soul. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we had these conversations throughout life? At school, with teenagers, adults, with each other in the workplace. And we are getting better. We are getting better at being more authentic and saying, I need help. Because the other thing is, here in Canada, and I'm sure it's not different in the States or anywhere else, 35% of people in the workforce are also caregiving. 35%. That is a heck of a lot. And as people age and continue to live longer, this will increase. It cannot be something that everyone unrealistically says, oh, the healthcare system will take care of this person. That is not a realistic expectation. Caregivers, unpaid caregivers, give most of the care. and so perhaps the healthcare system, and I know they're different, it's different everywhere, but I know it's the same issue everywhere. We have an unrealistic expectation of what they will be able to care they will be able to provide. And so wouldn't it be wonderful to know ahead of time what will be available, what will not be available, and have conversations and create your compassionate community. And know that when you continue to give, and not get, and you deplete yourself, you are being a disservice to yourself and others, and it is not sustainable. You are perpetuating that culture that overdoes it and burns out. And we want to teach by example. We want to be our authentic, flawed, imperfect selves who can't do it alone and won't do it alone. I no longer have those unrealistic expectations of myself. I no longer feel proud of my badge of, oh, she does everything for everybody. She's so amazing. That's not where I need my kudos anymore. And I don't need everyone to understand. And I work at and practice not judging or comparing, right? Oh, they seem to be handling all of this so well, and why am I not handling it? And judging myself. And that's also where we get into our own trouble, don't we? So I don't know why they can handle it better. Maybe they have just this internal strength that I just don't feel right now, and that's okay. And maybe at another time I will have that strength, and maybe they'll need extra help. It doesn't matter. What matters is recognizing and acknowledging our boundaries, starting with that self-compassion. This is what I can do, I'm able to do, I'm willing to do, and being okay with that. Being okay with not being the martyr hero that does everything for everyone. And again, on the flip side, being that person who will just show up. Let's not wait for Joe or Josephine to say, I'm absolutely falling apart, and they ended up in the hospital because they were so burned out that they just couldn't cope anymore. And everyone's like, oh, I didn't even realize. Let's get really good at checking in with ourselves, and let's get really good at checking in with others. And they say, oh, we've got it, I don't need any help. It's like, okay, well, what if I, just, like I said, walk the dog, cut the grass, pick up food, whatever it may be. And I jokingly, I say to people, you know what? I'm here because I need to make myself feel good. Because when you do give to others, especially when they are in challenging situations, yes, it's hard, and sometimes we want to avoid the person because it's emotionally challenging for us. And it triggers our own grief and our own fears. And what can we do about that? Let's normalize those conversations, right? We don't have to shame ourselves like, oh, it's hard to see this person who is taking care of their loved one. I mean, it terrifies me. And acknowledge your feelings and just show up anyway and take good care of yourself. Because here's the other thing, in our society where, you know, there are mental health issues and emotional health issues and physical. And when we know that our neighbor is burning out, or we're pretending we thought they were fine, or a family member, whatever they may be going through, when we do not check in or give a little or give a lot, whatever we have to give, it chips away at our own heart and soul. And we've all done it. We've all done it. Which reminds me, I have an aunt I need to call and check in on. Life is busy, yes. And when we don't check in, when we aren't part of that caregiving, it's hard. And we can push it down, and yet think about it. It doesn't feel good. When you can tell yourself, okay, this is what I can do. I can give 15 minutes and I'm going to go take all the branches out of my neighbor's front yard because I know that he broke his leg. 15 minutes. I did this to help you. I had 15 minutes. Have a great day. Little note. Those are the things that create more connection, help people to not feel so lonely and isolated in silos in their caregiving or their own struggles. And it's that reciprocal. When you give, you get so much more in return, especially when you give with no attachment. Well, you know, I'm not waiting for, oh, thank you. Thanks so much. You saved the day. No, just give from your heart. And of course, always allow and bring with you heart, humor, and humanness. Maybe they won't appreciate what you did. That's okay. That's okay. If you're doing it with the right, you know, you were doing it to give. Maybe when I went to help at Habitat for Humanity and I took away all the garbage, maybe it would have been someone who just didn't even notice or didn't say thank you. That's okay too. You know, that's their stuff. So if we can really, really get back to the give and get back to see where we have unrealistic expectations of what we can and can't do. If we can move away from judging and comparing, right? There's so many things that we can do. And if you find yourself in a situation, in a crisis, you are just feeling like you cannot give one more thing, ask for help. Ask for help. When people say, oh, they don't have anyone, I beg to differ. There are hotlines, there are community groups, there are online groups, there are churches, there are organizations that support seniors. Somebody out there cares. Somebody out there cares. Reach out to them. I'm one. Reach out and create your compassionate community. Create your compassionate community within your family, friends, neighbors, coworkers, church groups, sports group. Let your people know that you are struggling, because we are all in this together. We are all connected. And for that compassionate community around, just show up. Don't be afraid that they'll ask you to do something and you aren't able to give. That's okay. You can show up with your boundaries. I'm not able to do this, but I'm able to do these other things. And let's all just remember to just show up for one another. And it starts with just showing up for yourself first. So thank you again for joining me. I love these conversations. I want to continue them. And always remember and never forget, if you want to be a part of someone's compassionate community and have a compassionate community and just show up, start with my call to action. Plan your life, plan your death, and then just love your life to death. And always bring your own tambourine to the party. I love you. Take good care of you because you have value and you matter. Thanks. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.